You've heard it before. The 10 Commandments. Those old rules don't apply anymore. We've evolved past that. Maybe you've even said it yourself. After all, why follow laws written on stone tablets thousands of years ago? But what if I told you that dismissing them as outdated is the first and most dangerous mistake people make? Think about our world today, full of anxiety, broken relationships, corruption, and endless chasing after happiness that never lasts. Now imagine if there was a code, a set of principles designed to prevent exactly this chaos. That's what the 10 Commandments really are. Not just rules, but a blueprint for a life that actually works. Take the first commandment, "You shall have no other gods before me." Most people hear that and think of ancient idols and false gods, but today our idols look different. Money, power, success, even our phones. We worship these things thinking, they'll give us meaning, but they only leave us empty. The commandment wasn't given to control us, but to free us from chasing things that can never satisfy. Or consider, "You shall not murder." Jesus took it even further. He said, even hatred in your heart breaks this command. In a world where anger and division spread like wildfire, this ancient law speaks directly to our modern chaos. The truth is, we've replaced these timeless principles with modern ideas that aren't working. We say, follow your heart, but hearts can be deceived. We say, live your truth, but without a foundation, truth becomes whatever we want it to be. The 10 Commandments weren't given to restrict us. They were given to protect us, to guide us toward what truly matters. But here's what most people miss. These commandments reveal something deeper about who we are and who God is. They expose our flaws, yes, but they also point us toward grace. And that leads to the next mistake, one that distorts the very purpose of these laws. Now that we've seen how these commandments are far from outdated, let's tackle the second big mistake people make, thinking God gave these rules to control us rather than to love us. Imagine a father teaching his child not to touch a hot stove. Is that control or protection? The commandments work the same way. God didn't give them to restrict our freedom, but to protect it. Take, remember the Sabbath day. Most see this as an arbitrary rule, a day where you can't work. But look deeper. It's God saying, Hannah, you're not a machine, you need rest, your worth isn't in what you produce. In our 24/7 hustle culture, where burnout is normal, this commandment might be more relevant than ever. Or consider, honor your father and mother. This isn't about blind obedience to imperfect parents. It's about recognizing that healthy authority structures actually bring freedom. A society that respects wisdom from previous generations is a society that thrives. The shocking truth? Every thou shalt not is actually a thou shalt live free from the slavery of greed, free from the destruction of broken relationships, free from the emptiness of chasing temporary things. But here's where it gets really interesting. If these commandments are about relationship rather than rules, then breaking them doesn't just violate a law, it damages a connection, which leads perfectly into our next mistake, perhaps the most dangerous one of all. Now we come to one of the most misunderstood commandments, you shall not murder. Most people hear this and think, well, I've never killed anyone, so I'm good. But what if I told you Jesus revealed this commandment goes much deeper than we ever imagined? In the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus shocked his listeners by saying, "You've heard it said, do not murder, but I tell you that anyone who is angry with his brother is in danger of judgment." That changes everything, doesn't it? Suddenly, this isn't just about physical violence. It's about the violence we do with our words, our attitudes, our social media posts. Think about how we destroy people today. Character assassination through gossip, silent treatment that lasts for years, hateful words spoken in anger, online bullying that ruins reputations. The truth is, murder begins in the heart. That moment when you wish someone would just disappear, that grudge you've been nursing for years, that bitter resentment you refuse to let go, these are all violations of this commandment. But here's what's truly shocking. This commandment isn't just telling us what not to do, it's showing us a better way to live. It's calling us to be peacemakers, to reconcile, to forgive. Because every time we choose love over hatred, we're fulfilling the true purpose of this law. And this leads perfectly into our next mistake, one that might hit even closer to home for many of us today. Now let's confront one of the most minimized commandments in modern society. You shall not commit adultery. Most people think this only applies to married couples and only to physical affairs. But Jesus revealed something far more radical when he said, anyone who looks at a woman with lust has already committed adultery in his heart. This commandment isn't just about protecting marriages, it's about protecting our very humanity. In a world saturated with pornography, emotional affairs, and dating apps that encourage endless swiping, we've normalized what the Bible calls adultery of the heart. Consider how subtle this sin can be. The co-worker you flirt with just for the ego boost, the secret emotional connection you maintain with an ex, the hours spent consuming sexualized content online, the way we've redefined harmless fun to include what God calls destructive. But here's what we're missing. This commandment isn't about restricting pleasure. It's about preserving something sacred. Every time we violate this principle, we're not just breaking a rule. We're breaking trust, breaking families, and breaking our own capacity for true intimacy. The shocking truth, this commandment actually points us towards something better, a love that's deep, committed, and free from the emptiness of temporary passion. And this revelation leads directly into our next mistake, one that might surprise you with how deeply it's woven into our daily lives. Let's examine one of the most narrowly interpreted commandments: you shall not steal. Most people picture burglars or shoplifters and think, I've never done that, so I'm safe. But what if I told you we're all guilty of breaking this commandment in ways we rarely consider? The Bible reveals stealing goes far beyond taking physical possessions. It includes wasting company time while pretending to work, plagiarizing ideas and claiming them as your own, keeping extra change when a cashier makes a mistake, promising what you never intend to deliver, pirating digital content, because everyone does it. But the most devastating theft happens in relationships, stealing someone's reputation through gossip, robbing people of their dignity through unfair treatment, taking affection without giving commitment, withholding forgiveness that's been earned. Here's the profound truth we're missing. This commandment isn't just about what we take, but about what we fail to give. When we withhold honesty, integrity, or fairness, we're stealing the truth someone deserves. When we cut corners at work, we're stealing value we promised to deliver. God gave this commandment not to limit us, but to create a society built on trust rather than suspicion. Imagine a world where people actually gave what they promised, in business, in relationships, in everyday interactions. That's the world this commandment points us toward. And this revelation perfectly sets up our next mistake, one that might be the most insidious of all because it's so deeply embedded in our modern mindset. Now we come to what might be the most misunderstood commandment of all: you shall not covet. Most people hear this and think it's just about feeling jealous of their neighbor's new car or house. But what if I told you this commandment reveals the root cause behind all the others? Coveting isn't just wanting what someone else has. It's the toxic belief that our happiness depends on obtaining it. This silent sin fuels our endless consumerism. I'll be happy when I get that upgrade. Our social media envy. Why does their life look better than mine? Our career discontent. I deserve that promotion more than they do. Even our relationship struggles. Their marriage seems perfect. But here's what makes this commandment so revolutionary. It attacks sin at its source. Before someone steals, they covet. Before someone commits adultery, they covet. Before someone lies to get ahead, they covet. That moment when we look at what others have and think, I deserve that more, that's where the breakdown begins. The shocking truth? This commandment exposes our culture's biggest lie, that more possessions, more status, more experiences will finally make us happy. God isn't trying to deprive us with this command. He's trying to free us from the endless cycle of dissatisfaction that never delivers what it promises. And this leads perfectly into our final and most dangerous mistake, one that could change everything you thought you knew about living under grace. We've arrived at the most dangerous misconception of all, the idea that God's grace means the 10 Commandments no longer matter. People say we're under grace now, not law, as if Jesus came to abolish God's standards rather than fulfill them. But this misunderstanding could be costing us everything. Jesus himself said, "Do not think I have come to abolish the law, but to fulfill it. Grace doesn't erase God's commands, it empowers us to live them. Think about it. Grace forgives when we break "do not lie," but doesn't make lying acceptable. Grace covers when we violate "do not steal," but doesn't endorse theft. Grace restores when we break marriage vows, but doesn't nullify "do not commit adultery." The truth is shocking. Grace makes the commandments more relevant, not less. It's not either grace or law. It's grace to fulfill the law. When Paul said we're not under law but under grace, he wasn't giving license to sin. He was declaring we now have power to obey what we couldn't before. Here's what we're missing. The commandments show us God's perfect standard. Grace gives us a perfect Savior who met that standard for us. And now, through His Spirit, we're empowered to reflect that standard. Not to earn salvation, but because we're saved. This transforms everything. The commandments become not a burden, but a delight. Not rules to earn love, but guidance from a Father who already loves us. And that changes how we approach every area of life. Now that we've exposed these 7 dangerous mistakes, let's uncover the breathtaking truth that changes everything. When we stop viewing the commandments as either obsolete or oppressive, and start seeing them through the lens of grace, something miraculous happens. The 10 Commandments transform from a set of rules into a portrait of Jesus Himself. Think about it. He never had any gods before the Father. He never misused God's name. He perfectly honored the Sabbath rest. He fulfilled every command without fail. Here's the revolutionary truth. Jesus didn't just obey the commandments for us. He now lives them through us. That means, do not murder becomes His heart of love flowing through us. Do not steal transforms into His generosity, expressing itself in our actions. Do not covet manifests as His contentment filling our souls. This is why Paul could say the law is holy, righteous, and good. Not because it saves us, but because it shows us the heart of God. The commandments were never meant to be a ladder to climb to heaven, but a mirror to show us our need for Christ. And now, through His Spirit, these ancient words become living promises. What we couldn't keep in our strength, He now fulfills through our surrendered lives. The law written on stone becomes the law written on hearts, not by our effort, but by His transforming grace. This is the ultimate fulfillment, not the abolition of God's standards, but the miraculous reality of Christ living them through us. And that changes everything about how we approach God, life, and our daily choices. What if everything you thought about the 10 Commandments was about to be turned upside down in the best possible way? We've journeyed through these truths together. But here's where it gets personal. This isn't just ancient wisdom. This is your invitation to experience life as God designed it. Imagine waking up tomorrow, free from the slavery of always wanting more, released from the weight of hidden compromises, living with authentic purpose and peace, experiencing relationships as they were meant to be. This is what happens when we stop seeing God's commands as restrictions and start seeing them as the pathway to freedom. The same power that raised Christ from the dead is available to you right now to live this reality. But here's my challenge to you. Don't let this be just another video you watch and forget. If this message has stirred something in you, take action today. Hit that like button if you believe these truths can transform lives. Subscribe if you want more content that cuts through cultural lies and reveals biblical truth. Share this with one person who needs to hear it, because the world is desperate for this message. This isn't about religion, it's about revolution. A revolution that begins in your heart today. Will you join it? Your transformed life will be the greatest testimony that God's ways are still perfect, His grace is still sufficient, and His commandments are still the path to abundant life. The choice is yours.